There is a one thing that foundationally changes how ICE operates, and in my opinion, one thing only: unmask all of them. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Before You Speak podcast. I am your host, Derek Peterson, just processing the fire hose of my news feed with this guy over here, Mr. Elwyn Hutter.
What's up, Derek? Also, just getting through the fire hose, which it's been really, really cold here. So I think my fire hose is frozen. It's bursting, though. It's really full. There's a fucking backup of shit in there, but I think it's frozen solid.
Well, dude, it's been a crazy 2 days since, dude, one, going back and watching those videos just breaks my heart. Like, the more you watch the video of Alex Petit or Pretti, we'll just say Pretti. The more you watch that video, the dude is just literally trying to help somebody. And dude, the fact that they made this about his gun when they didn't even know he had a gun on him till seconds before shooting him is complete horseshit. So, like, when we're talking about all this stuff, like, a lot needs to change. A lot. And dude, to be honest, and I will give a few people on Fox News credit, because there's a few people that on the right that have already come out and been like, yeah, we celebrated Kyle Rittenhouse for the same thing, so we can't do this here. And so the few people that are actually not just buying into the bullshit narrative that Kash Patel and Kristi Noem and the devil, otherwise known as, what's his name?
Miller?
Stephen Miller. God, that guy is the devil. I think so.
He's really
Incarnate.
bad.
Yeah, dude.
He's really bad.
If there was ever a guy with little man syndrome on the face of the planet, it is like the definition of it. So, but yeah, couple days removed, where's your head at the moment?
So, I am surprised. I'm pleasantly watching, some people wake up and be like, oh, no, this was really bad. The gun angle of this was really bad. It's really hard to defend. But it is also, still, this seems so clear cut to me that I can't understand entirely why everybody isn't coming to the same conclusion. I mean, you have Trump out there today saying, you just can't have guns. You can't have guns, right? He's saying this shit out loud. So yeah, Bavino is, I guess, gone, or maybe he's not gone. I keep hearing conflicting reports. I think Noem, they're out for Kristi Noem also, and she's sharpening her knives to go after, with the Nuremberg defense. They made me do it, Stephen Miller and Trump. So I think this will shake out. I think the heat needs to stay on it. It can't just be a like, let them bring in Tom Homan, fire Bavino, declare victory in Minnesota, and move on. I think we as a people need to, really keep the heat on in any way that we can.
Yeah, we the people need to realize that whatever is in the Epstein files is really bad. That's
third person today that brought that up with me.
Whatever is in there, they are protecting, like, beyond anything we've ever seen before. And the amount of, to the point of Americans losing their lives potentially over this stuff. I won't draw a direct line between the guy that was so bad at his job, so underprepared to do anything in the world of policing, that opened fire on Alex Pretti. Like, that I'm not gonna include that guy in this conspiracy, because that whoever that is needs to be arrested and thrown in jail immediately and until trial. But yeah, like this whole, I still think there's a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And to be honest, it also makes me sad. The chatter's calming down a little bit, and I'm like, man, this guy was literally just murdered right in front of our eyes. Like, and it breaks my heart that, how quickly the news cycle can shift,
Yeah, I think that it's very hard to keep the pressure on. We know that the strategy of this administration is to flood the zone with so much shit that you can't really dig into any of it.
It's the Steve Bannon thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll go to war with Iran pretty soon, because why not? That seems like the next logical distraction. But no, there need to be trials at the end of all this. There need to be arrests. People, these are crimes. These people are committing crimes against the American people, and yeah, there needs to be a reckoning at the end of this.
Well, so that's going to be my next question. So, um, based on like kind of what you saw uh, post shooting, have you had any additional clarity beyond that? You know, because our podcast the day of was, I mean, relatively angry. I was more emotional. So, was there anything from that you want to add on? And then I'd like to end our conversation tonight by talking a little bit about what's the vote that's happening, I believe, on Thursday with the Department of Homeland budget, and how Democrats and Republicans, how anybody with a soul needs to respond to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting to, you and I talked before we started this podcast, and we said never read the comments. And I was reflecting back on it, and I was like, I don't think that I said anything super controversial in that. I was fired up for sure, but I really don't think there was all that much controversial. So I did go into the comments because I was like, they can't be that bad, and they weren't. And the most recurring sort of not positive comment took some form of like, oh, now you liberals are all about the Second Amendment. Wow, how about that, right? And I thought that I was thinking about that for a while, and I think that I want to take that question on its face. I don't want to undermine the question. I think that there's validity in that question. So why do I, as a liberal, feel so strongly about the Second Amendment violation here, right? That's an important discussion. That's a discussion that can really help us all learn a little more about each other. So, let me be clear. I don't like guns, okay? I don't own guns. I think this country has too many guns. I think that when we are, waving away 25 kids in Connecticut being shot in an elementary school, we have lost sight of the balance in this debate, life versus gun ownership. I stand on that proudly, okay? But what
Mm-hmm.
happened this weekend is not that. Right? We have the right to carry guns. All the conservative and Republican protests in 2020 and 2021 at state houses where everybody is openly carrying, assault rifles, they had the right to do that. Right? Some guy walks into a subway with a gun on his holster in Texas. He has the right to do that. I don't have to like it, and I
Yep.
can leave if I want to, and I can have serious questions about why he's doing that, but I recognize that he has that right. My issue is not with the presence of the right. My issue is with how we manage that right. And we manage rights in this country all the time. We have regulations and limits around the right to speak. We have regulations and limits around the right to assemble and protest. We have regulations about voter ID, right? I'm sure every Republican that's in favor of voter ID at least says that they are in favor of everybody voting. They just want you to show ID at the polls. So we have this bucket of constitutional rights. And what worried me about Donald Trump always was that he has this thread in him, which seems like he might say, I don't give a shit about your rights at all. Not,
Mm-hmm.
I've draw a different line on where they should be regulated. I don't believe they exist at all. And if you waive those rights in my face in a manner that stops me or gets in my way, I'm going to march right over you. That's what I believe he is. And that's exactly what I believe happened here. So, like in this moment, the reason that I wanted to come on today is to open this conversation. Like, look, you can tell me that I'm wrong about how we should regulate guns. But you and I, Republican and me, okay, we believe that the right to carry the gun exists, and we believe it for the same reason.
Yeah.
We believe it so that the government doesn't come in and fucking shoot us when we're standing up for our rights. So,
Which
in
is a founding principle of our country.
a
And
founding
also,
principle of our country.
and the reason Democrats have not ever fought to abolish the Second Amendment. It's we've asked for regulations around guns. But I have not met too many people that are like, we need to just get rid of this completely. Because, like, look, people were coming over here on boats, 200 years ago to flee dictatorship. Like that's what the entire purpose of what America was built on. And part of that was that we're not going to give up the right to defend our constitutional rights, because the people that had come in and made these laws had been experiencing that in their lifetime. They've had those things. They felt helpless. They felt like they had no voice. They felt like they couldn't protect themselves against their government, which is exactly why those laws exist here. So I've never been one to say, like, and in full disclosure, this is the first year that I've actually seriously explored gun ownership, and we will probably end up getting one. The problem is I have to make sure that I'm comfortable with, I have 4 kids in the house, so I've got to make sure that we have the safety issues taken care of prior to, and serious conversations with all of them. And I would like all of them to learn how to shoot it as well. But in the meantime, like, dude, I've never been one that was going after somebody's guns. I'm going after, look, we require people to wait until they're 21 to drink alcohol legally. We require people to go through a rigorous process to get a driver's license and practice to drive a vehicle. Like, why in God's name do we not have a rigorous process for gun ownership? And especially if you're going to own any kind of semi-automatic or automatic weapon, there should be, you know, that shit should be under lock and key. There should be tests that are really hard to take and pass, to like competency tests, mental health tests, like safety tests, like all that stuff. Like, this isn't, it's not rocket science. It's just like, man, like, if we're really talking about all of us trying to actually solve a problem, like what happened in Uvalde, like, dude, nobody wants that. Like,
Yeah. The
nobody
the
wants that.
the funny thing is that, like, you know, I'm probably more, wary of guns than you are. When I lived in New York, I was a like end the Second Amendment guy, right? I
Mm.
was anti-gun. And then when we moved to Texas, I talked to people and and I
You
learned,
talk to people?
yeah, I know. And I learned that ultimately I knew very little about gun culture. I knew very little about very rural areas. I knew very little about a lot, and
Yeah,
I knew nothing about even more. And that I was wrong. I was wrong in that stance. So,
yeah,
I evolved on that. And the interesting thing is that I have no problem with the idea that when we're talking about something like gun ownership, that is held to a different standard than even driving when you're 20, driving driving test and drinking when you're 21 and all those things, which are, really privileges and not rights. If we're going to look at the constitutional order of this country, well, the reason why people say read the Constitution, right, is because in that document are a list of rights and a list of rules for everybody in this country to follow at the individual, state, and federal level. Right. So when we have an enumerated right in the Constitution, like the Second Amendment, I'm open and sympathetic to the argument that regulation in those rights should be strict and carefully done. Right. I'm
yeah,
fine with that. Right. The thing I'm also fine with, though, is that those rights should not be fucked with. And it doesn't make me, liberals all, I'm sure, agree with that, right? We all want to live by the rules of the Constitution. We all want our freedoms, right? And to think that, well, now a liberal wants gun is all for the Second Amendment. No, I'm not all for the Second Amendment in a way that I wasn't a week ago. It's a right that we have that should not be trampled on.
yep,
Period. And we should all be able to agree on that basic fundamental fact. And from there, we might diverge like a tree grows branches, right? But as
yep.
long as the root is that that fundamental right should not be trampled upon, and that what happened this weekend was an open and clear trampling of that very fundamental right, along with the right to protest and to speak freely. You know, we have to be
And
able to
along with the
coalesce
right
around
to
that.
just not get your ass kicked by cops for no reason.
Yeah.
Like, like, there, that should be a right as well. Like, we shouldn't just have cops pushing women over and instigating a fight and then shooting somebody at the end of it. Like, yeah, like there's you can't watch that video any other way than just, dude, those people lost control. They lost control of
People
their emotions, and they made a terrible decision. And a decision that in any other circumstance, dude, even listening to the military guys talk about that, like, I think we might have touched on that before. I've seen a number of military guys come out and say, dude, if we did this exact scenario with an enemy overseas, we would be, what is it called, court-martialed, or like essentially
Yeah.
kicked out of the military, like, for like, but we're allowing it on our own streets. Like, I'm sorry, man. And so this leads us into this where I want to end tonight is just, look, Democrats have to unite. There has to be unity amongst the party at some point. Unlike, and look, I'm calling myself a Democrat, and I genuinely try not to subscribe to any party. I try to vote with my values, and I've always done that. I want I care about people that care about other people. That's really what I want to see in our government, and how I want to see our government ran. I want to see our government ran by people that care about other people. We don't always have to agree on how that looks, but we have to agree that there is a fundamental uh, uh, service to the American people, and that's why you're in it. And we've lost so much of that. And we will not get advocacy in our government unless we start to speak their language. Our government has made it clear to this point the only thing that they give a fuck about is money. And so until we go after these people's businesses, until we unite and we start to create advocates in the White House for us and are able to, collectively be like, hey, we are going to abstain from these companies. We are not going to pay for their services. And we're all going to do this together until these people go into the White House and tell the guy that you have their ear, hey, stop doing this. Because the political battle is a lost one. The right's just over there calling us crazy, saying like the left, if you're a left, you're an extremist, blah, blah, blah. Left is over here just screaming MAGA, like everybody's MAGA. If you voted for this, like you're getting what you deserve, all of that. Okay, look, the divide is clear. So if we want real change, in my opinion, this is the only way it happens.
Yeah, I think there's the change can happen, I think, in two parts, right? There's the protests work.
Yeah,
Everybody knows the Martin Luther King "I Have a Dream" speech, but it is important that there was an economic component to the civil rights movement as well. The Montgomery bus boycott, that's an economic movement. Just last year, Tesla, people, stopping buying Tesla, that had an effect in getting Elon Musk out of power. People speaking up against Microsoft has had an effect on them reducing their presence in Israel. Uh, Economic boycotts make change. They work. They work, and Target has suffered as a result of this. And I think it's something that we talked about sort of exploring more and more. So to our listeners, to our loyal listeners, you're going to hear us bring this up a little bit, uh, and we're going to do that in an effort to try and get people to affect change in a way that they can.
yeah.
And how you spend your money is a really, really powerful way to affect change.
I think it's the only way we get through to these people outside of getting through to our constituents that are supposed to be representing us, which is brings us to the last topic of the evening, which is, dude, there's a vote happening this week on the Department of Homeland Security budget, and if there's a single Democrat that votes for this, I'm gonna lose my damn mind. Um, and in my personal opinion, outside of the funding and everything else, like, look, I haven't done enough deep dive. I know that ICE has been funded to the tune of, the Israeli army. So another 10 billion, in general, I think almost every liberal in the country is against in the first place. But beyond any of that, there is a one thing that foundationally changes how ICE operates. And in my opinion, one thing only: unmask all of them. There if anonymity gives people courage, it's why people can sit behind a keyboard. And dude, it's why I've had like 10 people in the last 2 months call me and be like, hey, are you sure you want to do a podcast with your face on it that involves politics? Because yeah, like it's much easier to get into people's comments section on Reddit when you have nothing to lose and lose your crap. It's a much different thing to actually put out thoughtful analysis and stand behind the values that you claim to have and be willing to attach your face to it. And so I would be a coward if I wasn't willing to talk on in a format where people could see me and understand who I am, even if they disagree with me. Further that, if you are a police officer in the United States of America or enforcing any law, we absolutely have a right to know your identification and to know if you're actually a police officer or somebody that's dressed as a police officer that's trying to abduct another human being. So I personally do not want to accept a single thing out of any of this until they are unmasked permanently. I think that solves so many of these issues.
100% agree. You know, they want to be known as police. They call themselves law enforcement officers all the time. They're the only group of law enforcement officers that wears masks. You know, this idea that they're worried about being doxxed, guys that are fighting the mob or the gangs, Tren de Aragua, the people that, Trump is saying are the worst people in the world, they're not wearing fucking masks, right? They're out there with their faces and their names on their shirts. So, I read this morning, there's a set of apparently there's a sort of bill that the Democrats are talking that they could get behind, which would, among other things, include having the name identification and body cams on ICE agents, which is a start. It would also remove Border Patrol agents back to the border. Also good. Also really good is it would require that the feds allow states to investigate shit like what happened in Minnesota. But the core of this, in our sort of year preview episode, I talked about how I thought the Democrats could make great gains unless they fuck it up. This is one where they can fuck it up. Shut the fucking government down if you have to. Everybody will support it. Everyone will support it. Shut it down and say until Noam is out and ICE is defunded, shut that shit down. Okay, you can get less than that ultimately and reopen it, but take a stand here. It's the easiest stand in the world. And if the Democrats in the Senate, because the Democrats in the House have already passed this bill, and a couple of them went on record on Sunday, were like, whoops, shouldn't have voted for that shit.
Yep.
So it's Chuck Schumer and Tim Kaine and these cucks in the Senate that have got to dig in. And I know Schumer's saying all the right things, but man, they fucked it up in November.
I don't trust Schumer at all. I don't trust him at all. Dude, unmask them. Unmask them. There is not a single purpose for having anonymity as an ICE agent. I don't care what anybody else says. And if a single Democrat votes for this bill and there is not stipulations in there that they need to unmask, I'm out. They need to be primaried.
They need to be primaried right away.
The whole thing. Yeah, immediately.
Yep.
Immediately. And to be honest, Republicans should back this too. This is beyond just an ICE thing. Anonymity helps no one in this situation. It is the only level of accountability. And if our Justice Department is not going to hold these people accountable, then their face being plastered all over the media absolutely should. And it's the one thing they've stolen that from us. And I'm furious about that. Like, unmask them. That's it.
Yep. With you.
So sweet, dude. Well, we will, now that I'm all fired up, I'm going to go try to sleep. Now, what did we just say we're talking about on our longer episode this week?
Age limits.
For
Chuck Schumer. He should age out tomorrow.
God, dude. I'm ready for this conversation.
Get someone in on Thursday. Get someone younger in on Thursday. Age him out tomorrow.
Dude, can we just get them? Anybody over the age of 65, I'm okay if we just booted every single one of them out and replaced them. Dude, even with Republicans, like, I'll give you a look. Out all of the older Republicans, and let's just put in some 30 and 40-year-olds.
If you've never read a Chuck Grassley tweet, go read a Chuck Grassley tweet. It's fucking hilarious. It's hilarious. Like,
is he on Threads? I don't do Twitter.
You could probably just like Google Chuck Grassley tweets, and you'll just be
Okay.
like, what is this fucking letter salad in front of me right now?
I will do that. And yeah, dude. And tomorrow, are we doing our longer podcast tomorrow?
Supposed to, yeah.
Sweet. I'll cut this
Sweet.
whole part out at the end.
All right.
Have a good night, man. See you tomorrow.
All right, man. You too.